Well, I think the oldest thing we have in the museum is a 70 motor ski.
Yeah.
Most everything is mid-50s, mid-60s.
A lot of brands that people might remember from their youth that just don't exist anymore.
That's a fact, yeah. At one time in the late 60s and early 70s, about everybody got in on it. The boat companies and anybody that had any kind of a manufacturing facility was trying to get in on the snowmobile.
Oh, yeah.
The problem was there wasn't any trails, there wasn't any clothing, and they fell apart.
Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is all about snowmobiles today. There are a bunch of big events coming up, all taking place on sleds. Some are fast, some are old. One of them is really, really messy. We'll preview several of the big ones. Even if you don't snowmobile yourself, you've got to see some of this to believe it. And all of these events are a good excuse to get outdoors in winter. You know, whenever the tourists of summer ask us how we deal with the cold weather in winter, I just kind of look at them with pity because they know not what they're missing. While native flatlanders are huddled up near the fire watching Netflix, we're out having fun, raising cane, raising money, and raising a new generation of kids who know how to have fun in the winter. Coming up, the Pine Tree Camp Egg Ride, the antique snowmobile ride for cancer, the second annual Paul Bunyan Snowcross races, and a brand new snowcross event at historic Pittston Farm. Grab your heated handle grips and hold on. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Doors Equipment, Napa Auto Parts, and EBS. Here's the backstory on our first story. 43 years ago, area snowmobile clubs banded together to create the Pine Tree Camp Snowmobile Ride-In to benefit the Pine Tree Camp for children and adults with disabilities. Located on the shore of North Pond in Rome, Maine, among the Belgrade Lakes. The camp has been around since 1945. 30 years ago, while I was waking up Eastern Maine on a different radio station, Q-106.5, I came up with a new idea to help raise money for the camp, the Pine Tree Camp Egg Ride. Listeners pledged money to the camp, and the more money they pledged, the more raw eggs we had to stuff into our snowsuits for an adventurous ride from Levant to Newport, dribbling yellow the whole way. I'm pleased to say that my idea is still going strong, and I will be riding with them again this year. One person who has been there nearly from the beginning and has made more egg rides than any other living human is Cindy Campbell. So welcome back, Cindy.
Thanks.
Well, it's good to have you on board. The Pine Tree Camp Ride-In is coming up, I believe, the first Saturday of February.
Right.
Now, I'm going to play dumb here, which actually comes pretty easy for me.
I'll refrain from comment on that.
Yeah. But what is the Pine Tree Camp Ride-In, and specifically the snowmobile ride-in with the eggs?
Right. The snowmobile ride-in is actually involves snowmobilers from all over the region who get together. They raise money. They get together and they make this huge ride to raise money for the Pine Tree Camp for children and adults with disabilities. Now, the egg ride is a really small portion of that. We usually have anywhere from 6 to 10 riders who carry eggs. For every $50 in pledges that we get through the radio station, each rider carries a raw egg in their snowsuit. It's a huge mess. And we ride from the Hungry Hollow 76er Snowmobile Club in Levant to, it used to be to the community center. This year we're actually going to end up at the Newport Elementary School because the community center is not in operation right now.
Really?
Right, yeah. So it takes us a little over an hour covered in eggs, and that's a small portion of the whole ride-in. But we certainly have a lot of fun and gather a lot of attention when we de-egg at the end of the ride.
Every year, just even if I don't get to go, I look for the photos because the experience is so funny.
Yeah.
You can imagine how many eggs, how much of a mess 100 or 200 or 300 eggs would make.
Yeah.
And you still can't quite get to what it really looks like.
Right. These days we average about 225 eggs per person because there is a limit. I mean, we raise more money than that, but there's a limit to how many you can physically carry and still operate a snowmobile. And 225 eggs, most of which are broken, turns into a huge mess.
Yeah, well, and frankly, there's also a limit to how many chickens there are out there making the eggs.
Right. We don't want to tax the chickens too much.
It's all about the chickens, really.
That's right.
So it's the Pine Tree Camp Ride-In. What is the Pine Tree Camp, for those who are unaware?
The Pine Tree Camp is this wonderful facility in Rome, Maine. I actually got to visit it the first time this past year. And they give a real camp experience to children and adults with disabilities. So kids that normally might not be able to go out on a boat and go fishing or go hiking on trails through the woods can do that because they have set it up to make it handicap accessible. They have everything from a tree house that's wheelchair accessible to this year they installed a playground where kids in wheelchairs can actually swing.
I think one of the big things that should be noted is that camp has been around for a very long time. Usually when you have a camp of that nature, it's struggling to hold on, or it's improving because the mission just keeps growing. This is the case where they've always been good. Every year they get better. This camp has been growing and renovating. What they can do for kids with disabilities right now is simply astounding.
Yes, it is. They have big, beautiful buildings, and they have some new houses for the kids to stay in, and they have some family houses. So if the parents are not really comfortable leaving their kids there in the care of other people without them being there, they can go as well and stay in family quarters.
We actually had occasion to talk about this a month ago. We're both trying to remember which number this one is. We have been doing it for about 3 decades.
Right.
I think we did settle on the fact this is the 30th year that Q-106.5 has been doing the Pine Tree Camp Egg Ride.
Yeah, and you've been on a lot of those.
Well, I did all of the original
all of the
ones.
original, yes.
About 17 years of the first ones. Yeah, next to marrying my wife, that is probably the best idea I ever had.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And hiring me.
Well, yeah. Well, you're the only one still in the building who was there 30 years ago. Is that right?
I wasn't there 30 years ago. I started a year and a half after the station started.
And so we had already started the egg ride by the time you arrived.
Right.
See, this is like two old people talking about what they remember and remembering it wrong.
That's right. This is two old people going, do you remember when this started? No, I don't remember when it started.
And my hip hurts.
That's right.
I'm going to be sitting around on a porch talking about my ailments.
I don't know if my arthritis is going to let me do it this year.
That's right. But seriously, you have been doing it for at least 29 years, so if there's anybody who has had more experience than the rest of the world, it's you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm an expert at carrying eggs.
This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. Cindy Campbell is my guest. She's now doing mostly news on the Town Square Media radio stations in eastern Maine. 92.9 The Ticket is one of those stations. Q-106.5 is another one, and it's the station doing the egg ride every year. It's where I spent 17 years in the morning, and one of the tiny pleasures I get out of life is knowing that everyone who has ever followed me on the air there has gotten stuck with the eggs. There's no avoiding it. As it happens, the station has a new victim, and I'm wondering if he knows what he's gotten himself into. So more on the egg ride coming up. This is Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. This is Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. There's actually a couple of milestones happening on today's show. This is the 150th episode of Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine, for anyone keeping score. I think I'm the only one. And we're talking about the 30th Pine Tree Camp Egg Ride, an event that raises money for the Pine Tree Camp for children and adults with disabilities through listener pledges. For every $50 in pledges to the camp, a bunch of celebrity and semi-celebrity riders must stuff another raw egg into their snowsuits for a treacherous ride from Levant to Newport. That's hundreds of raw eggs, and the riders are not allowed to use plastic or anything at all protective. It's a god-awful yellow mess. Cindy Campbell is my guest. She's heard doing the news on several local radio stations, and she's been a member of the cast of characters at our sister station, Q-106.5, for almost 3 decades. However, that radio station now has a new morning show host who's stuck with the eggs.
Scott Miller.
Scott Miller. Yeah, who is he and where did he come from?
Scott came to us from Madison, Wisconsin.
Uh-huh.
He actually is originally from Canada. Has worked in major markets all across the country, has worked in Florida and several other markets, worked in Chicago. But his wife has always loved Maine, and so is he. He used to travel through here as a kid, and at one point apparently his wife got a job in Maine and said, we have a house in Blue Hill, and I'm going to go live there. And Scott found out about the opening at our station and said, hey, you know what, I'm going to go and be with my wife and work in Maine and downsize a little bit from the major markets, and we're thrilled to have him.
And sure, did he know about the Pine Tree Camp Egg Ride when he took the gig?
I don't think so.
I mean, because it's not an option. He's going to have to do this.
He's going to have to do it, and he's actually very excited about it.
Is he?
Yeah.
Why?
I think because he doesn't quite know the full scope of what we're doing yet.
Because it's freaking nuts.
We've explained it to him. We've shown him the pictures, and he said, awesome, let's do it.
Yep. If you circle one date on the calendar when it's the dumbest thing you do all year, that would be the date.
But it's also one of the most fun things that we do. I love doing it every year, and we're actually thrilled to see that it's that we're getting some snow because, we've had years where we had to put the snowmobiles on flatbeds and sit on them and have them hauled by a truck because there was no snow. So hopefully this year we'll have snow and make it a great experience for
Yeah.
them.
So what was his reaction, Scott Miller, when you told him about the egg ride? Were you the one who explained it to him?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did his eyes, get big?
We got the question about that we get from so many people about how is that sanitary? I mean, you've got raw eggs that are soaking into your skin. How is that sanitary?
And furthermore, some of these eggs were judged not to be fit for human consumption, which is why they're saved for us.
Right, exactly. Some of them are past the date, or maybe not just perfect enough to go in the store. But no one's ever gotten sick from it, to my knowledge.
Well, and in 30 years, that's a trend.
Yeah.
I suppose if in 30 years nobody's gotten sick, probably no one's going to get sick.
Right. When I explained to him how it works, he said, okay,
yeah.
Great.
Has he ever actually been on a sled, being Canadian and then spending time in Wisconsin?
Yes. Loves snowmobiling. So.
Oh, he does?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll change that. Now, my experience when I've done this in the past is you go through open fields and thick woods all the way down from Levant to Newport, and the leaders are not burdened by eggs. So they speed up or they go around the corners a little faster than those who are encumbered can actually manage. Has that ever changed?
No. No, as a matter of fact, last year we had picture-perfect conditions, and at times it was a little bit of a challenge keeping up with them. But and we did actually lose a couple of riders last year briefly. Some of the leaders had to go back and put them on the right track. Poor Eric Owens, our afternoon announcer, last year was his first year, and I said, Eric, all you have to remember is keep your eyes on the people in front of you and keep up with them, because if you lose them, you're lost. It's not a straight shot. So he did. Unfortunately, the two women from one of the local TV stations that were in front of him missed a turn. So he followed them right off the path, and then when he went to turn around, he rolled his sled, but the sled was fine, and so was Eric. So.
Well, radio announcers are expendable anyway.
That's right.
Yeah. Game wardens used to direct traffic. Are they still doing it at the road crossings?
They still do it at the road crossings, and some of the wardens will join us on the ride.
Okay. And are they still throwing eggs at you as you go by?
Absolutely.
Oh, man. This just never gets any prettier. So how do people make pledges and contribute to the Pine Creek Camp?
They can make pledges by calling 991-9500 or by going to our website, Q-106.5 There is a link there to a First Giving page where they can make donations online.
Now, I should explain, this radio show is obviously on 92.9 The Ticket, which is one studio across the hall.
Right.
This is All Town Square Media, which is a radio company that specializes in doing really unusual and wacky things in public.
Right.
With all of its media platforms. So we do have that relationship. I used to work for Q-106.5, which is now a long time ago.
Yeah, a few years.
Yeah. And I get to do this radio show across the hall. So we're all one big happy family, and together we're going to make a mess.
That's right, exactly, and raise some money for some kids and send them to summer camp.
Cindy Campbell. And the event is the Q-106.5 Egg Ride to benefit the Pine Tree Camp for children and adults with disabilities. That money is raised through pledges to the radio station. You can phone them in, or you can do it on their website at Q1065.fm. The Egg Ride will happen February 6th, and you can even join the fun yourself. You can be there for breakfast and the start of the ride, and the egg load up at the Hungry Hollow 76ers Snowmobile Club on the Horseback Road in Levant that morning. You can be there for the end of the ride and watch the awesomely messy unloading at the Newport Elementary School, probably somewhere between 10 and 11 that morning. And you can even be part of the ride itself. That's 4 weekends away. But you don't have to wait that long to have fun. Next weekend, the Northern Timber Cruisers in Millinocket will launch their Snowball Run for Cancer Research. There are several elements to that event. Club members and participants are out there right now asking friends and neighbors to pledge their support to the American Cancer Society. Then, next Saturday at 9 a.m., the run begins. There's opportunities for sledders and non-sledders, and even for cross-country skiers. But the antique snowmobiles are probably the highlight, and the guy who knows the most about it is Steve Campbell.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks for calling.
Certainly. Northern Timber Cruisers has a couple of big events coming up, and the one that caught my eye was the Snowmobile Run for Cancer Research. What is that?
It's a pledge donation ride by snowmobilers. It can be either you can take pledges from people as to how many miles you make it, or you can make a donation, or people can make donations to you. It's open to all snowmobilers, and I also do an antique and vintage portion of that, where I do a little bit of a guided ride with the antique and the vintage snowmobiles, and I'm also curator of the museum in Millinocket, so I have quite an interest in that sort of thing, and that's fun to do also.
Oh, I would think so. If you're doing it a pledge for how far you can make it, what if it's only 2 miles on an antique sled?
Well, that's the problem. Those are the ones that generally get the pledges. The riders that are just touring the Katahdin region on the new snowmobiles just take donations and go with that. But there's a lot of people that like to bet on how far we can get and see how much it's going to cost them.
I bet that's true. You know, I've been up to the area so often, and I've never actually been into the museum. How many different antique sleds do you have in there?
We've got roughly 50 in there at any given time. They get rotated out from time to time because, we have more than that to display between myself and family and friends, and a lot of people like to get a machine in there once in a while when they can, and so it covers everything from a lot of brands, everything from a 1924 Eliason motor toboggan up through, I think the oldest thing we have in the museum is a 70 motor ski.
Yeah.
Most everything is mid-50s, mid-60s.
A lot of brands that people might remember from their youth that just don't exist anymore.
That's a fact, yeah. At one time in the late 60s and early 70s, about everybody got in on it. The boat companies and anybody that had any kind of a manufacturing facility was trying to get in on the snowmobile.
Oh, yeah.
The problem was there wasn't any trails, there wasn't any clothing, and they fell apart.
I remember my family had Evinrude for a little while, then it became OMC, and then they disappeared.
Yes, yeah. There was 128 brands at one time.
Well, I'm guessing many of the people who own antique sleds are antiques themselves.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for that, yeah.
Where can you...
My age group, I'm 65, my age group is pretty prominent in it, but there is a vintage group coming up through the ranks now that a lot of them are in their 30s or 40s enjoying the old racing sleds.
Where can you still get drive belts for these really old sleds?
Well, there's manufacturing companies now, they still use variable drive belts, so you can get about anything you want. It's just it's an industrial belt for a variable speed clutching system. It's a matter of measuring them and getting the right number.
Yeah, so if you're going to go any distance, then you just bring 7 or 8 of those along.
Yeah, and a pocket full of spark plugs.
Yeah, exactly. It's the Northern Timber Cruisers Snowball Run for Cancer Research. It's next Saturday. Steve Campbell is my guest. As we mentioned, you don't have to ride to participate. There's a lot going on, and we'll go over that schedule in a moment. We'll also put another event on your calendar, the Katahdin Area Winterfest. That's a whole week starting February 12th. Stay tuned, stay informed. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine, and the station is Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine, Saturday mornings at 9, Sunday mornings at 8 on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Today's show is a preview of some major snowmobiling events coming up. In a few minutes, we'll introduce you to some big snowcross race events, one of them brand new. But let's return to the Northern Timber Cruisers Snowball Run for Cancer. That's next Saturday. Steve Campbell is my guest. The clubhouse is open for meals next weekend. Museum is open. The groomed trails are open to everyone, including cross-country skiers.
That's correct. As of 7 o'clock in the morning, the club will be open for breakfast. They put on a heck of a breakfast, plus they serve meals all throughout the day. The museum will be open at the same time and heated. We will heat it for that day, which is to help. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we will be awarding a gift certificate from the River Drivers Restaurant to the person making the most money for the benefit. This year's cancer ride is going to be called the John Kevin Higgins Memorial Ride. He was a prominent person in our club that passed away a couple of months ago. Mm-hmm. So I think that anybody that's anybody in the world basically has had something affect them from cancer, either a close friend or a relative. I lost my father to cancer. I have a brother with cancer. So it's a biggie to me to try to gain some funds to help the American Cancer Society.
Yeah. The official ride itself, it starts at the clubhouse and then goes where?
Well, the modern sleds, a lot of people like to just be able to ride on their own because they can cover so many more miles. So the Katahdin region is open to anybody. Show up, register, make your pledge, donation, whatever it is. We'll have the local representative from the Cancer Society there to take care of that for us, Margot Stevens. And they can go anywhere they want, play, and come back when they want. Mm-hmm. The antiques are a little bit different because we try to stick together and make sure everybody makes it back. We have a backup. We have a backup crew with a modern day sled that can tow us back if need be. So we try to stick that group together. Although if somebody just wants to go off on their own, that's fine also. But most everybody tries to stick together.
So what's the success rate? If 20 sleds go out, how many will come back under their own power?
Well, we have a trip every year. I take about 12 of them, and we go for 4 days. Mm-hmm. But we take a lot of tools and a lot of parts, and generally they all make it back.
Yeah.
But this particular instance, probably about, I guess, 15 out of 20 might make it.
Mm-hmm. Now, this is really a case where there's no central gathering spot for collecting all the donations. It's each one of the riders just hits up their friends and family and stuff like that. But
right, and then it's all turned in at the clubhouse that day.
So really the emphasis would be to join the club. If you happen to be a snowmobiler in the area and you're not involved with Northern Timber Cruisers, maybe this is the year to join.
Yes, it would be. The club works hard year-round. We do a truck pull in the summertime to raise funds to keep the trails up and keep ATV trails up that we can and get permissions. And there's a lot of work that the club does that they do fundraising for that. And if you like your trails and so forth, it's a pretty inexpensive way to support it by just joining the club.
One other thing that's on your calendar that's really significant is the Katahdin Area Winterfest. That's coming up for a whole week. It's February 12th through the 21st, and I guess there's an antique sled show and ride on Saturday, February 13th, that you must be involved in.
Yes. We have the parade Friday night, too, which is also a big event for snowmobilers because we put snow all the way from Stearns High School to the bandstand at downtown Millinocket and groom it. Mm-hmm. And anybody that wants to be part of the parade can do so. We always have a whole bunch of antiques in that one too. I always say anything from Model Ts to TNTs. My brother has a Model T Ford with tracks on it, and so you see about anything in that parade. That's an awesome time. It's a hot dog feed at the bandstand and bonfire. And then the following morning at the clubhouse, I have my antique vintage show from 9 to, I think I've got it down from 9 to 2 that day. Yeah. And, somewhere along the line, we all take a ride about 10 miles.
Mm-hmm. And that's the Katahdin Area Winterfest. Most of the activity for you happens the first weekend, but it goes all week. And I think the Fin and Feathers Club have a gun show the following weekend. So
yes, they do, yeah. There's activities throughout the week for family-oriented things, and as well as cross-country skiing, snowmobiling, fishing. There's an ice fishing derby day, Sunday, or ice fishing day, I should say. I think it's for children on Sunday at Jerry Pond, sponsored by the Fin and Feather Club.
Well, I'm always feeling sorry for anybody who only goes to the Katahdin area in summer because they don't know what they're missing.
Oh, it's a beautiful place in the winter.
Once again, the Northern Timber Cruisers Snowball Run for Cancer Research is next Saturday. My thanks to Steve Campbell for explaining it all to me. Last year, for the first time in years, snowmobile racing returned to Bass Park in Bangor. It was billed as the first annual Paul Bunyan Snowcross. And of course, you always wonder if there's going to be a second annual. Well, there will be. In 3 weeks, Bass Park in Bangor is going to get really loud again. A snowcross race is like motocross. Riders make the circuit while jumping bumps and rounding tight turns. It's a snowmobile race that takes place partly in the air. East Coast Snowcross brings the event to Maine. Dysart sponsors it, Eastern Maine Community College benefits from it, and Bangor turns out to support it. It was quite a crowd last year, and I should know, I was there. Kurt Gagne is standing by to update us on what will happen at this year's race, including for the first time a snow bike class. Motocross bikes equipped with skis and treads. But first, a sample of last year, so you have some idea what I'm talking about. I'm trackside at Bass Park in Bangor. It's only about 10 degrees, but the wind isn't too bad and the sun is shining. The stands are full of spectators. The far side of the horse track has been converted into a pit area. Scores of trucks and trailers supporting over 100 racing sleds over there. The sleds race in many classifications, even a class for kids. The 8 to 10-year-olds will take the track a little while. Right now, the pro class is on the track. These are big modified sleds. They're faster, they're louder. It's like listening to a chainsaw as they tear around the track. They jump the bumps 40 to 50 feet of the air and more. Pros travel from all over to get to this event. We've got local riders, and we've got some riders from Quebec and beyond. Some of them are on the track right now, as this is the second of 2 heats in this class. The winners of the 2 heats will race to the championship later this afternoon. Now, if you've never seen snowcross before, it's like motocross on bikes or dune buggies or whatever. It's a small oval track with big bumps and banked corners. Speed isn't as important as accelerating the bumps smoothly and handling those bumps and staying out of trouble in the corners. The sleds run close, sometimes hitting the jump simultaneously. The biggest bump is the finish line. It's a massive jump, and the sleds leap dozens of feet right in front of the grandstand. There's a dip where they land, and then it's another small jump just before a tight banked corner. The 3 small bumps beyond that lead into another very tight corner. And then the sleds need to accelerate quickly into a set of 4 bumps. The fastest sleds and best riders try to clear 3 of those bumps in one jump. The lower classes can't get that much air, but they'll try to take them 2 at a time. Taking the bumps is the key to winning snowcross. The trick is to keep the sled relatively flat in the air and hit the downslope of the landing area. If you're tilted too far back or forward, you can come down with a thump and lose momentum. If you fly too far, you hit the upslope to the next bump and lose time. Losing time in the bumps means losing time in the corners. Most of the passing takes place in the corners or in the relatively flat section on the far left side of the track where the starting line is. Getting off to a fast start is critical. Whoever gets out in front often stays in front. At the starting line, about 7 sleds go off at once and race around the first turn to get to the big jump in front of the crowd. In the last few heats I've been watching, twice there have been collisions right there at the start as the racers juggle for position. Anyone unlucky enough to start on the outside sometimes find themselves crowded to the edge in the turn. In fact, just a little while ago we had another sled who toppled over just as they got to the jump. The crews are fast. If sleds topple over and get tangled up, the yellow flag comes out, and they work quickly to get those sleds upright before the field comes around to the second lap. All of these races are, of course, lap events. The higher the classification, it's more likely the laps they do. It's really tight. The entire snowcross track fits inside the horse racing track at Bass Park. Passing is difficult. The leader gets the best line into the turns. In order to pass, followers may attempt a tighter turn inside in the corners, but this usually loses momentum as the rear skids out a bit, and it's hard to accelerate fast enough to make the jumps that follow that turn. Best chance to pass is on the far end, where the jumps are shorter and the straightaways relatively smooth. But you got to make the corner correctly in order to set up for that big jump right there at the finish line. The big jump in front of the crowd demonstrates how you have to handle the jumps. As they hit the hill, riders let off the gas at the last second and try to float low through the jump, getting back on the ground as quickly as possible to accelerate into the turn. On the backside, the pro riders hit the first jump as fast as possible, trying to clear several bumps at once. This heat's coming to a conclusion. First over Skidoo, then 2 more Arctic Cats coming through, a Polaris and another Skidoo. The leaders of this race will go on to race again later on this afternoon. That's a quickie from last year's Paul Bunyan Snowcross. Up next, what's the same? What's new for this year's Snowcross? There are some major improvements like new machines, new classes, new chances for newcomers to try it out, and most important, the beer is going to be in a different place. Kurt Gagney gets us updated in a moment when Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine returns on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. This is Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket with Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. The second annual Paul Bunyan Snowcross is coming up the last weekend of this month. Kurt Gagne operates East Coast Snowcross, and he's the ringleader for the shooting match. He's bringing 2 events to Maine this year, and we'll start with the Bangor event. But if you're familiar with historic Pittston Farm, and everybody is, there's another one coming in March, and we'll get to that one too. Kurt, welcome back to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, it was exciting last year. I was glad for the opportunity to go watch the Paul Bunyan Snowcross at its first annual event last year, and I was crossing my fingers hoping there would be a second, so I was delighted to see there is.
Oh yeah, we're coming back to Bass Park.
Now, what are the exact event dates and times this year? Because it's not the same weekend we did it last year.
No, the date is January 30 through the 31st, Saturday and Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
It's 10 a.m. spectators. Racers can be there about 6:30 if they're checking in for trail class or 120 class, or any other races, any other classes they want to race. It's $15 a day, $20 a weekend, and 7 age and under free.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, from where I was sitting last year, it looked very successful. What was your assessment?
Yeah, it did very well. I mean, we had a lot of racers that came out and raced in trail class. We actually had spectators, I believe it was up and over the 5,000 spectator range.
Wow. In my book, that's a success. I mean, getting 5,000 people out there on a shivering winter day. Snowcross seems to have replaced oval racing. You don't really see that much round the track racing anymore. It seems to be that Snowcross is just a more exciting event. That's what people have gathered to. Is that your experience?
Yeah, Snowcross, it took off, and we're gaining momentum again. We're getting a lot of people back involved in it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the ovals are more out west with the big, some of the big tracks out in Wisconsin way. They still do the ovals out there, and up in Canada too.
There are a lot of different classes that get to race in this event, and I don't understand any of them. So can you explain what it is people are looking at when it comes to the sled classes?
From the ground up, we got 120s, which are the 120cc youth, which are ages 4 to 10, and then we go right up through the categories from 8 to 10, 10 to 13, 14, 15, 15, 16, and so on. A lot of them are manufactured race snowmobiles. A lot of them are just regular your average trail snowmobile. Your pro lights and pro women, pro men, and our sport riders, which is quite a crew. You get the pro and pro and under the sport, and that's very good. You know, you're watching some good racing right there. That's where your big jumps are. That's where these guys been on these snowmobiles for a very long time, since the age of 4 or 5. The trail class is for people ages 18 and up, and it's to get a chance to come out and try that track out, take your buddy out, and get your bragging rights against them. And we also had it in the trail bike class this year, which is motorcycle with a track on it. It's the Timber Sled Kit. We're going to be running that. It's up to 600 cc's, any brand, any flavor. They're going to be running just like the trail class with 2 heats and a final each day. And there's in that class we actually have a contingency for $100 for first place from Polaris both Saturday and Sunday.
Are there that many trail bikes around that are equipped this way? Because I frankly haven't seen one.
It's coming out. It's a big buzz. It's been a big buzz out west for a while, and that's coming our way. I mean, a lot of these guys are putting kits on. They want to stay on their bike year round, and it's a way to get them out and get them on the track, and show them that we're going to work with them. If this is the way we're evolving a little bit, and there's going to be a class for it, we're going to help them out and get them into this class and get them on their sleds so they got somewhere to go.
Well, I think the first time you saw Bass Park, you must have been salivating to look at how good that was set up for Snowcross.
Yeah, it's a great facility, and everybody in the city helps out, and everybody's on board with it, it makes it 10 times better.
Well, I got to go trackside last year, and what really struck me is just how different the tactics are depending on the power of your sled. How much air you take, trying to land on a downhill slope, trying not to get past in the corners. The tactics seem to vary a little bit depending on their sled, and that's about all I could glean. So, as a spectator, what should I be looking for?
If you're a spectator, you should want to come out. You're going to be there about 10. You're going to get the pros are going to come out and start practicing. And, from 10 on till about 2:30, we're going to be running all the say, very experienced riders from pro down to sport, and even the 14, 15, 16, 17 range. These guys are pretty much moving up right through the ranks.
We'll probably throw a couple little things in there in that mix with maybe throw a 120 race in there just to make everybody see how the little guys can go around the track, give them a little experience. But yeah, you're there to watch the high flying action, and these guys are bar to bar, and they're racing for championship points throughout the season. So it's going to be good.
On the back side of the track last year, there was a series of, I think, 3 bumps in a row. The pros could just take all 3 in the air at once. The smaller classes, the trail classes, couldn't. That must change your tactics a little bit as you're going around the race.
Yeah, the pros, I mean, they pick and choose where they can go, where they can pass people, and they pick their own lines. They're very, very technical. You get trail class guys, which, you know, these guys are good riders. They're riding in the trail. They're not used to being out on that track, so they're pretty much they'll figure it out at the end of the weekend, but that's by the end of the weekend or end of the day, it'll be too late. Maybe they won or they don't go second, you know.
My observation was that it's a lot like equestrians in a steeplechase. The way you jump, you sort of have to ride very carefully up in the air to try to get the sled back down flat or headed in the right direction rather than clumping down onto the snow. It's a real technique I would think you'd have to master.
Yeah, they make it look easy.
They do, but it's not. It can't be.
No.
I mean, you try to land on a downhill slope because if you catch the uphill, you just come to an almost dead stop if you time it wrong. So that's really going to be a matter of timing as much as anything else.
Yeah, timing and sled time, you know, seat time.
Yeah.
They just know, you know, if they've been on that sled for 3 or 4 times in the beginning of the season, they're still going to, you know, it's like anything else, like riding a bike. They've been on these sleds forever.
Yeah.
It's just natural to them. There's a lot of good talent.
Yep. I'm just testing my observations on you to see how much of last year I got right. But it looks to me like a lot of the passing takes place in the corners because when you've opened up the throttle after the bumps, everyone's about the same speed, but it's the maneuvering in the corners that seems to matter. Is that accurate?
Yeah, they'll kind of box everybody out, and they'll box each other out in the corner. One will go high, one will cut under and go low. You know, you'll have that occasional passing in the air, jumping over somebody. Most of the time, they're going to set themselves up to get everybody in the corner, or get whoever's in front of them out of the corner, unless they're running out of time and they got to get them on the straightaway.
Yeah.
You'll see some of that, too.
So what did you learn from last year's event in Bangor that changed planning for this year's event? Anything?
The only thing we changed is we kind of put the food and beverage under the grandstands with Bass Parks helping us out in the Hollywood Casino. They're going to be having that under there instead of having an outdoor tent. We're going to lean more towards focusing on the spectators in the stands. We're going to have some giveaways and some things like that coming up. We're just putting together a plan on what we're going to do in that area. Just pretty much run it like we did last year and keep it tight and have a very successful event this year again.
Well, where's the beer tent going to be, indoors or outdoors?
It's going to be indoors. They're going to have the bar set up underneath.
Let's go over schedule, cost, and again, just to make sure everyone's clear on that.
January 30, 31st, Bangor Park, or Bass Park in Bangor. And it's 15-day, 20 weekend. 10 a.m. spectators can be there. They can be there a little earlier if they want to. But 10 a.m. we're going to start kicking off some pros. And 6:30 for the racer registration if we're doing trail class, go bike class, or 120s, or any other class. They need to come register in the morning.
We're talking about the second annual Paul Bunyan Snowcross Race, coming to Bangor's Bass Park on January 30th and 31st. Kurt Gagne runs East Coast Snowcross, and he's the brains behind all this. He's also bringing another race to Maine, this one to historic Pittston Farm. I think even Kurt would tell you he didn't realize how far in the woods this was until he went to see it for himself. Circle March 12th and 13th on your calendar. They're still planning it, so I haven't got all the details, but we'll give you what we've got next. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Welcome back to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. There are several snowmobile racing events in Maine, usually in populated areas or on well-known lakes. It takes a certain amount of courage to organize a race deep in the woods. But that's what they're going to do. March 12th and 13th at historic Pittston Farm up there on Subumic Lake above Moosehead. Historic Pittston Farm is a popular spot for adventurous snowmobilers, and it's about to get even more popular. Kurt Gagne is my guest. East Coast Snowcross is headquartered in Massachusetts, so have you even been there?
Yeah, I've been there. And we actually went up and visited the folks that Piston Farm a couple months ago.
Mm-hmm.
They contacted us and said, we have a lot of snow up here. We're thinking about having some type of event. We went up, went through some things, and found out it was very remote. and we kind of talked and said, how are we going to get spectators here? And we kind of looked at each other and said, we're not. Our spectators are going to be guys riding in on trail sleds.
Yep.
She has numbers of over 1,700 in a weekend just coming in to have food, beer, just getting fuel, anything at the farm. So we're looking to, grab a hold of that and get all these riders out there and get them to the event and see if we can get them on the track and possibly gain some more riders from them and have a put a good show on for something for them to do for the weekend.
I can put your mind at ease because every snowmobiler in Maine knows where Pittston Farm is, and although it seems remote, that's probably true if you're going up by vehicle, but if you're going up by sled, it's just normal. It's routine in the Moosehead area, especially to head up that way because their kitchen has been renowned for like decades. And the area in the Subumic area is just fantastic for sledding, so everybody knows it, and just about everybody can find their way there.
That's what I'm told.
Yeah. Where are you actually going to have the races? Is it going to be in the campground area, down on the lake? I was trying to picture that.
Towards the lake, there's a very big field, and we're bulking snow up for it now. We're actually going to have a radar run, both days, single run radar run, and it's for anybody. And we're working those right now. We'll have them out soon on our Facebook or on our East Coast Snowcross page too. Mm-hmm. Right now, we're looking at the radar run Saturday, Sunday, Snowcross track Saturday, Sunday, and we're looking to do a possible vintage oval as an addition. We're just kind of working out the details of that, and if we can round up enough people to get out there with the vintage, we're gonna work with those guys too, and make it like a sort of a snow festival for something to do for everybody.
Well, I've been to Pittston Farm so many times, I think I know it like the back of my hand, and I'm trying to picture how do you control spectators if you're doing a charged event, because it's not like Bass Park where you've got a sort of contained area and people have to gain admission to get through the fence. You can watch from almost anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, people are going to come in. The road goes right by it. Right where the trail comes through is where the track is going to be. The actually radar run or the snowcross track is going to be there. So we're going to have it fenced off, an orange fence, to kind of funnel everybody into the farm. And then they'll pay right there, and they'll come in and get around. We're talking right now where it's going to be $10 a day to come in and enjoy everything. It may change. We're just working out details right now, like I say, and we're going to have stuff out pretty soon. There's a lot of sponsors that are helping out the farm with this event.
Yeah, I think it probably is an ideal place to do it because I think the Moosehead area in general is one of the meccas for snowmobiling in the state. So I think you're going to have a built-in crowd. And once they find out this is going to be in mid-March, we haven't even talked about dates yet, but mid-March.
Yep. It's the 12th, 13th. We locked in the date, March 12th, 13th. Other than that, they've already got snow up there. We know that.
Oh, yeah.
So we're just, like I say, working out all the details and seeing what we're going to be doing. We're definitely doing a radar run in snowcross. We're just not sure about the vintage. We're going to have a vintage show. But there's going to be a lot of other items that are going to be added to this event. We're just getting moving on it.
And you probably won't have an opportunity to get as many different classes in a race that's more remote. You wouldn't be able to get as many sleds there probably as you would at Bass Park event.
We're gonna have all our normal racers. Mm-hmm. We may not have a lot of the junior that can't get away that far or something like that. But our pros, pro lights, and sport class, and on down to the racers, I'm sure we'll have everybody come in. Once they see it's going to be the event it's going to be, I think everybody will be showing up once they see everything.
The first thing I thought about when I read about the event was it's going to be a lot easier if the Canadians could come in by the Golden Road crossing at the border crossing where the lumber trucks go. But that's not normally open to crossings. Is it possible to make any arrangements like that, and have you thought about it?
We had talked about it a little bit, and I think the owners of Piston Farm, Jen and Guy, I had talked to them, and I think they're going to look into it and see what they can do. That would be a lot easier
Boy,
sure.
I'll say. I mean, it's almost a straight shot in from Quebec if you can come the Golden Road direction, because Pittston Farm is only 20 miles from the border, and if they have to go down and around, it's a much longer drive. So
Right.
yeah, I hope they can work that out. I've got both of your dates circled in my calendar because since I saw the snowcross last year, I recognize how much fun it is. And doing a snowcross at historic Pittston Farm, I think that's way cool.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time. Like I say, once we get everything together and everybody's on board with what we're going to be doing, we're going to get it out there and push it out.
Mm-hmm.
Come on out, and in your downtime, we'll throw you a couple T-shirts and hopefully you get to grab one.
Thanks a lot, Kurt. Have a good time with both events this year. With any luck, I'll see you at one or both.
Thank you very much.
That is Kurt Gagne of East Coast Snowcross. Now, to review, the Northern Timber Cruiser Snowball Run is next Saturday. The Paul Bunyan Snowcross is January 30 and 31. Pine Tree Camp Egg Ride is February 6th, and fundraising is going on now. The Pittston Farm Snowcross is March 12th and 13th. Plus, you'll be hearing about some other events soon on Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine, which is brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Doors Equipment, Napa Auto Parts, and EBS. This is Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket.